Well, welcome everyone. This is just a quick input into your passive speaker and basically looking into how they work and the principle behind them. So if we were in a workshop, we would have probably made our passive speaker out of manufactured board. And what we've got here, there's sort of three pieces you would have made it up out of. You've got the central piece, is what we're going to be looking at this week, which is where the sound will travel down to amplify from your actual iPhone speaker. I think so. On my one here, you've got the two speakers. Let's try and get in focus. Two speakers at the bottom that would line up. Just turn that off. I'd line up at the bottom, like so. And you can see where the sound would travel from the speakers of the iPhone or your Android phone down across here into this chamber here, and that's what would amplify the sound. You then obviously have your finishing piece, which would sit onto the front of your speaker to finish it off. Okay, and obviously then that would stand up and amplify your sound. Obviously at home, you aren't going to be able to have access to necessarily lots of timber and the materials and tools needed to operate it. So we're going to make ours out of cardboard, and I've got a couple of examples here. So between sort of now and next week, you need to try and save any vegetable boxes, Amazon boxes, anything you can do to make your passive speaker out of. You can see here, exactly the same principles as that example you've just seen. The phone will slide into the speaker, and again there's a channel inside that runs all the way into this chamber here, and it will then amplify that sound. Another example, and these will all be on a printout on your sheet as well. Different way you insert the phone. You insert the phone from the top this time, and the sound, sort of almost like a stereo speakers this way, the sound gets amplified in these chambers here. Okay, so the sound goes in there and gets split between these two chambers. So that's a couple of examples of how we can produce our passive speaker. So what I'm going to go through quickly now is how we can produce some templates and some different ideas for your actual speaker. And what we're going to do is grab your phone, and you can use that as a template for your drawing. What you need to do, hold it down, and going to draw around your iPhone. Okay, it's very roughly. If you don't want to do it that way, what you could do is obviously measure it and draw it out with a ruler and excuse me, and a pencil. So what we're going to do from there, you can then start drawing on where you want the rest of your items to be. So again, this can be quite faint to start with. You don't need to go full on to straight away. And you can use the edges of the paper to help you get square lines, i.e. all at right angles. Same thing down here. I'm going to start drawing my line along that so. And once you've drawn this basic shape out, again you can see I'm not worried about my lines joining or the corners of my shapes being completely in line. Okay, so I've got my rough shape there that I want to do. What I can then do, if you have, hopefully you have a compass, you can draw the correct size of circle. But if you haven't, you could find objects around the house. You could find a lid from a drinks can, you can find a jar maybe, or even sellotape or masking tape rolls will help you with that. So what you need to do, find that, draw in the size speaker hole that I think I want. Then I've got to think about where my channel needs to go into my speaker hole. Obviously, quite a few phones now have got two speakers, so almost stereo. But if you've only got one speaker hole in your passive speaker, what you've got to make sure you do is that the sound from both speakers can actually go into that channel. So I know for mine, this is where from your orthographic drawing you should have the details showing you where your speakers should be. Again, it can be fairly rough to start off with. Just making sure you've got that channel going into your speaker, and then again going here. So hopefully you can all see that. Once I've got my main sort of framework set up, I can then think about how I can make it look more attractive and aesthetically pleasing, and also more functional. So for example here, the entrance into the speaker hole, I can start rounding off, and this way I can start pressing a little bit harder with my pencil. Start rounding off these corners. Okay, and the same thing down here. And I'd see make it a little bit nicer looking. I can round off these bits here. And again, I've just turned my paper around if I want to help me draw my circles. So I can just rounding it off, make it look a bit more, we call it aesthetically pleasing. And again, even if you want to do a bigger corner, again you could use either a compass or use radius of a pot or a lid to draw on, and help you draw and be nice and neat with the radius of your shapes. Okay, so you can see how once you're happy with it, you can go a lot harder, and you've got your sort of first idea. You can see how then my phone would be inserted down and the sound would go out of the speakers along the channel and hopefully get amplified in that chamber. So that's one idea of how you could do it. Obviously, got a sort of here's one I prepared earlier, concept of a stereo attempt. And again, you can turn your iPhone into a stereo speaker, and each of these channels lines up with where the speakers are on the actual phone itself. And again, you can see how I've done a framework first, then I've gone around and started to just round off the edges that need to be rounded off, and then just go over a bit harder afterwards, so it highlights the actual lines you want to keep. And you can add extra details like this little indent here in the bottom of your shape, again rounds on the corners. So that's a very quick example, or two examples, of what I want you to have a go at designing this week. So your task this week, as it says on the briefing sheets, is to come up with come up with at least 3 different ideas for the layout of your passive speaker, for the internal layout of your passive speaker. So remember, you're going to have the back piece, which is going to be obviously this is wood, yours will be out of cardboard. Back piece is completely solid. Your inner piece, or inner pieces, depending on how thick your cardboard is, which has got the channel that leads into the chamber, and then your front piece, which is and again another circular hole where your chamber gets amplified. Yeah, so it doesn't have to be that way. As I said, you could do it this way, with the phone going in that way, in that direction. Okay, so you just got to think a little bit more about that though, in terms of how it can work. Obviously, feel free to browse on Google and other browsers to try and get some research and some ideas of existing products and how they're formed and how big a chamber you might need to amplify sound well. But that is your task for this week. Really nice, neat work. Again, it could be done on A4. Obviously, I do need a photograph or a scan of it. So what you could do is, once you've done your 3 drawings, you want to do it on A4, just lay all your drawings out. Obviously, I can't put it on the screen, but obviously, imagine you'd have all your drawings in one photo and take one photo of the whole thing, or take individual pictures of each plan drawing. Okay, so that is your task. Again, that would be in for Friday, please. Again, just upload it into Google Classroom and have a look at that. And then next week, we're going to be looking at the designing of the actual outside shape, and then doing a little bit of an isometric drawing of your final design. But hopefully you'll go well with that. And remember to start collecting some corrugated cardboard or whatever cardboard you can find to help you with your designs.